broken mirrors. Trent Harlow stared at his trembling hands, a performance he'd perfected over the last 3 years. The Behar County VA hospital waiting room buzzed with the familiar sounds of veterans seeking help, a world he'd immersed himself in since returning from what everyone believed was his final overseas deployment. "Mr. Harlow?" The receptionist called. "Dr. Lambert will see you now." Trent shuffled forward, shoulders hunched, eyes darting nervously around the room. The limp was unnecessary today, but habits formed the backbone of deep cover. Inside the office, Dr. Lambert smiled warmly. "How are the nightmares, Trent?" "Same," he mumbled, playing the role of a broken man. "Can't sleep without seeing their faces." The truth was far more complex. Trent Harlow, 38, hadn't served as a regular Marine for nearly a decade. The PTSD wasn't entirely fabricated. He'd seen enough in his early military career to understand its grip, but the debilitating version he portrayed was crafted for one purpose: to investigate the Solano cartel without suspicion. After 40 minutes of therapy theater, Trent emerged into the San Antonio heat. His phone buzzed with a text from Melanie. "Won't be home until late. Business dinner. Leo needs help with science project." Trent's jaw tightened. Melanie's business dinners had become increasingly frequent over the past 8 months. The first time he'd tracked her, she'd gone to the Pearl District, meeting a man with slicked back hair and a diamond-studded watch worth more than what Melanie believed was their annual income. That man was Vince Palmieri, a nightclub owner whose establishments served as distribution points for the Solano cartel's product. What Vince, and more importantly, Melanie, didn't know was that Trent had been investigating the Solanos for nearly 8 years as part of a specialized DA task force. When Trent pulled into their modest ranch-style home, Leo was already at the kitchen table, struggling with a model of the solar system. "Hey, champ," Trent said, ruffling his son's sandy hair. At 13, Leo had Trent's build and Melanie's expressive hazel eyes. "Mom's working late again?" Leo shrugged, a gesture that communicated volumes. "She's with Mr. V again, isn't she?" Trent maintained his cover even with his son. "Your mom works hard at the real estate office, Leo." "You don't have to pretend, Dad," Leo said, gluing Neptune to its wire. "I know she doesn't respect you anymore. Because of your—" He trailed off, gesturing vaguely to his own head. The comment stung worse than any physical wound Trent had received in the field. In 3 years of deep cover as a broken veteran, the hardest part wasn't facing the cartel's killers. It was watching his own son's respect slowly erode. "Sometimes people don't understand what others are going through," Trent said carefully. "I do," Leo said fiercely. "Mr. Cahill told us about veterans last year in social studies. How some of the bravest come home with invisible wounds." He looked up, eyes shining. "I'm proud of you, Dad. Even if Mom isn't." Trent swallowed the lump in his throat. Preston Cahill wasn't just Leo's teacher. He was Trent's DEA handler, strategically placed to provide additional cover and proximity to Leo for protection. As they worked on the science project, Trent's burner phone vibrated in his sock. Only 3 people had that number, his DEA team members. He excused himself to the bathroom. The text was from Aisha Morales, his technical surveillance specialist. Shipment moved to Friday. Palmieri's club. Primary target confirmed attending. The primary target, Diego Solano himself, the cartel's elusive leader who'd managed to stay off any surveillance footage for 5 years, was finally coming to San Antonio. What Trent didn't know was how deeply his wife had already been pulled into Solano's orbit, or that his carefully constructed world was about to shatter in ways even a veteran-day agent couldn't anticipate. When Melanie returned after midnight, her perfume couldn't quite mask the scent of expensive cigars. Trent pretended to be asleep, monitoring through nearly closed eyes as she slipped something from her purse into the hallway gun safe, the one she thought he'd forgotten the combination 2 years ago. Tomorrow, he decided, he would check that safe. The operation was approaching its endgame, and he couldn't afford any unexpected variables, especially if one of those variables was his wife. Chapter 2. The Becoming of Ghosts. 15 years earlier, Trent Harlow had been a different man with a different future. A decorated Force Recon Marine with 3 tours in Afghanistan. He'd planned to serve 20 years then retire to teach history. That trajectory changed during his final deployment when his unit intercepted a Taliban shipment that contained not just weapons, but high-grade heroin bound for American streets. The joint military DEA operation revealed an international network that stretched from Kandahar to Kansas City. Trent's tactical expertise and mind caught the attention of DEA Special Agent Barrett Yates, who recruited him directly from active duty. "You've got the perfect background," Yates had told him. "Military hero, small-town values, family man potential. Cartels never see guys like you coming." For 5 years, Trent worked standard DEA operations along the southern border, building his reputation. He met Melanie Winters during this period, a vivacious real estate agent with ambition that matched his own drive. Their whirlwind romance culminated in marriage after just 8 months. "She's good cover," Aisha had commented during their engagement. "She's not cover," Trent had replied firmly. "She's separate from this life." Aisha's raised eyebrow proved prophetic. The separation between Trent's worlds began collapsing the day he first encountered the Solano operation. What started as a routine surveillance on a mid-level distributor led to the discovery of a sophisticated cartel that had embedded itself into San Antonio's legitimate business community. Diego Solano didn't fit the cartel stereotype. Yale-educated with an MBA from Wharton, he operated through layers of seemingly legitimate businesses, from construction companies to restaurant chains. His innovation was infiltrating middle-class neighborhoods through carefully cultivated local distributors who blended perfectly into suburban life. When 3 DEA agents were discovered murdered, their covers blown, director Harlan Weber approached Trent with the most dangerous assignment of his career. "We need someone to disappear into plain sight," Weber explained, in a secured DEA facility outside Austin. "Someone who can move freely without triggering Solano's security protocols." The plan was elaborate. Trent would sustain a minor injury during a raid, develop complications, and gradually exhibit increasing symptoms of PTSD. His official separation from the DEA would be processed, with only 4 people knowing the truth. "What about Melanie and Leo?" Trent had asked, his son just 10 at the time. "Operational security requires complete compartmentalization," Weber replied. "They can't know." For 3 years, Trent lived a triple life: broken veteran at home, secretly active DEA agent in the field, and increasingly, a man isolated in the vast space between these identities. Meanwhile, Melanie's real estate business connected her with San Antonio's emerging elite, including Vince Palmieri, who first approached her to list a luxury property near Alamo Heights. Trent observed their initial meeting from afar, noting how Palmieri's attention lingered too long, how his casual touches tested boundaries. What Trent couldn't monitor was Melanie's gradual disillusionment with her husband's condition. The strong, confident man she married had seemingly vanished, replaced by someone who flinched at car backfires and sometimes couldn't leave the house for days. Vince offered what Trent appeared unable to provide: strength, excitement, status. When Melanie first crossed the line from professional to personal with Vince, Trent knew immediately. His training made reading her tells effortless. The subtle changes in her perfume application, the unexplained afternoon absences, the slightly too careful explanations. Each betrayal Trent recorded mentally, not just from investigative habit, but as emotional armor. His mission required letting the infidelity play out, potentially giving him access to Palmieri's operation. The cost was watching his marriage disintegrate and his son's confusion grow. What neither Trent nor his DEA handlers anticipated was how quickly Melanie would move from casual affair to active participation in Palmieri's business dealings. "She's attending private meetings now," reported Bruno Mendez, another deep-cover agent monitoring Palmieri's clubs. "Palmieri's introducing her as his consultant, but she's present during product discussions." A week later, surveillance captured Melanie accepting a package directly from one of Solano's lieutenants. "We need to pull her in," Aisha had argued during their secure meeting in Preston Cahill's soundproofed basement. "Not yet," Trent countered, his voice flat. "She's getting closer to Solano's inner circle. If we move now, we lose our best chance at the entire network." What he didn't voice was the cold calculus forming in his mind. Melanie had made her choices. Those choices would now serve a purpose greater than her betrayal. The operation accelerated when Leo entered 7th grade and Preston Cahill strategically positioned himself as the boys' social studies teacher. With a protective eye on Leo during school hours, Trent had greater operational flexibility. "Your boy's smart. Preston told him during a secure debrief. Asked some pointed questions about my military service today that nearly caught me flat-footed. Trent allowed himself a rare, genuine smile. He gets that from me. As the operation approached its final phase, the pieces were aligning perfectly. What Trent couldn't know was that Leo's curiosity would catalyze the explosive culmination of his 3-year mission, or that Melanie's involvement went far deeper than anyone in the DA had imagined. Chapter 3. Broken Bones, Broken Truths. The gun safe in the hallway had been Trent's idea 3 years ago, a logical security measure for a home with a child. Its official purpose was storing his registered Glock 19 and hunting rifle. Its unofficial purpose was creating a controlled space he could monitor. The morning after Melanie's late night, Trent waited until Leo left for school and Melanie departed for her office before approaching the safe. He didn't need to check the security camera he'd hidden in the smoke detector. He knew exactly when she'd accessed it last. The combination, Leo's birthday, clicked softly as the heavy door swung open. Inside, nestled behind his pistol, sat a small package wrapped in plastic. Heroin, by the look and feel of it. High grade, likely part of the shipment coming through Palmieri's club. Trent photographed the package without removing it. This wasn't just evidence of Palmieri's operation. It was confirmation of Melanie's willing participation. She wasn't just having an affair, she was actively involved in the distribution network. He secured the safe and made an encrypted call to Aisha. "We've got confirmation," he said without preamble. "She's holding product at the house now." "Jesus, Trent. In your home? With Leo there?" "It gets worse. The shipment Friday isn't just distribution. Based on this quality, it's a sample for potential buyers. Diego's building a multi-state network. We move Friday then," Aisha confirmed. "Weber's approved full tactical support." "I'll be ready," Trent said, ending the call. What happened next wasn't part of any operational plan. Leo came home early, a half day at school that neither parent had marked on their calendars. Trent was meeting Preston at a secure location, reviewing final operational details. Later, Trent would reconstruct the sequence through Leo's traumatized account, security footage, and physical evidence. Leo, looking for batteries for his science project remote, remembered the pack in his dad's drawer near the gun safe. The combination, his own birthday, was something he'd seen his father input countless times. Inside, behind the guns Leo knew never to touch, he found the package. Curious and increasingly aware something was wrong in his home, he opened it. The white powder inside meant nothing to him initially, until he remembered the anti-drug presentation at school just weeks earlier. What Leo couldn't have known was that Vince Palmieri would choose that exact afternoon to visit, supposedly looking for Melanie. Instead, he found Leo, the open safe, and the exposed package. Trent's secure phone vibrated at 2:17 p.m. Leo's name flashed on the screen, the emergency line Trent had established for exactly this kind of situation. "My son called from school," Trent told Preston, reading the text aloud, his voice deadly calm. "Dad, Mom's boyfriend broke my arm for finding their drug stash in your gun safe." Preston's face went white. "How badly is he hurt?" "Badly enough to text instead of call." Trent was already moving, switching to his regular phone to call 911, directing an ambulance to their home, while simultaneously alerting the DEA tactical team. "This changes everything," Preston said, keeping pace as they rushed to the vehicle. "No," Trent replied, cold purpose replacing the mask of PTSD he'd worn for years. "This just moves up the timeline. She didn't know I was undercover DEA for 8 years. By midnight, her entire cartel network will be in handcuffs." The hospital waiting room transformed into an impromptu command center, with DEA agents disguised as medical staff securing the perimeter around Leo's room. The boy's right arm was broken in 2 places, a clean fracture of the radius and a more concerning break near the elbow. "He threatened to break the other one if I told anyone what I found," Leo whispered to Trent, pain medication making his words slightly slurred. "But I remembered what you always said about having a backup plan." Trent held his son's good hand, professional composure warring with paternal rage. "You did exactly right, champ." When Melanie burst into the hospital room 30 minutes later, the performance of a concerned mother was nearly flawless. Only someone trained to detect microexpressions would notice the calculation behind her panic, the momentary glance at Trent to gauge his understanding. The doctors said he fell from his bike, she said, voice perfectly modulated for the nurses nearby. That's what the initial report stated, Trent replied mildly. Funny how X-rays tell a different story. Defensive breaks, they're calling them. Color drained from Melanie's face. What are you? Not here. Trent cut her off, nodding toward Leo, who had finally drifted to sleep under sedation. In the hallway, Melanie transformed, hissing, You have no idea what you're dealing with, Trent. Your pathetic disability checks and military pension can't touch what Vince offers. Trent maintained his PTSD-affected demeanor, hunched shoulders, and averted gaze, even as he replied, Our son's arm is broken in 2 places, Melanie. Whatever you're involved in, it's gone too far. It was an accident, she insisted, too quickly. Leo must have surprised Vince. You know how jumpy men like that can be. Like you, with your episodes. Something in Trent's tactical mind clicked into place. Men like that, he repeated. You've brought dangerous people into our home, around our son. Vince isn't dangerous, Melanie scoffed. He's powerful. There's a difference you never understood. Trent nodded slowly, the pieces aligning. Melanie wasn't just holding product. She was fully aware of Palmieri's cartel connections. Her contempt for Trent's perceived weakness had transformed into active endangerment of their son. The original operation called for simultaneous raids during Friday's shipment. That timeline no longer worked with Leo injured and Palmieri aware the drugs had been discovered. As Melanie left to make some calls, Trent nodded to Aisha, disguised as an orderly down the hall. The surveillance net around Melanie activated immediately, tracking her calls and movements. Within an hour, DEA intelligence confirmed Palmieri had contacted Diego Solano directly, reporting a security breach. The shipment was being moved immediately, tonight. Trent kissed his sleeping son's forehead and whispered, I'll be back soon, champ. With answers. To the nurse, actually a DEA agent named Rita Dominguez, he said, No one enters this room except medical personnel you've personally cleared. Understood. As Trent walked out of the hospital, he shed the persona of broken veteran like a snake molting dead skin. His posture straightened, his gaze sharpened, his movements became precise and economical. In the tactical van, he addressed the assembled team with cold clarity. Surprise, honey. Your husband isn't just a pathetic veteran with PTSD after all. Chapter 4, Devils in Daylight. The DEA Tactical Command Center, disguised as a commercial warehouse near the San Antonio airport, hummed with controlled urgency. 24 agents prepared for simultaneous raids on 7 locations throughout the city. At the center stood Trent, no longer hunched or hesitant, briefing the assembled teams. Diego Solano has accelerated the distribution timeline. Our intelligence indicates product movement begins at 2200 hours through these locations. He gestured to the marked points on the city map. Primary target is the Pearl nightclub, where Palmieri and likely Solano himself will be coordinating. Director Weber, who had flown in from Washington once Leo's situation was reported, addressed the room. This operation represents 3 years of deep cover work. Agent Harlow has sacrificed more than any of us to bring us to this point. The unspoken acknowledgement hung in the air. Trent had sacrificed his marriage, his relationship with his son, and nearly his identity itself for this mission. What about the wife? Asked Agent Thompson, tactical lead for the nightclub raid. Trent's expression remained professionally neutral. Melanie Harlow is to be treated as a hostile asset with potential intelligence value. She is not to be harmed, but secure detention is authorized. What Trent didn't share was the personal operation he'd set in motion parallel to the official raid. While the DEA would hit all 7 locations simultaneously, Trent had another target, the waterfront penthouse where he knew Vince Palmieri took Melanie for their liaisons. As the teams dispersed for final preparations, Aisha approached him privately. You should be with Leo, she said, concern evident beneath her professional demeanor. Leo is secure with Rita and 2 agents. I need to finish this. This isn't just about the operation anymore, is it? Aisha pressed. Not after what Palmieri did to your son. Trent checked his tactical gear. The mission parameters haven't changed. Bullshit, Aisha said quietly. I know that look, Trent. We've worked together too long. He finally met her gaze. 3 years, Aisha. 3 years I've watched my son think his father was broken. 3 years I've watched my wife despise me for weaknesses I fabricated for this job. And now my son has a broken arm because I let this continue too long. You didn't. I did, he cut her off. I calculated the risk and decided the potential intelligence was worth maintaining cover. I was wrong. Aisha nodded slowly. Just remember who you really are when you confront Palmieri. That's exactly what I'm counting on, Trent replied. At 9:15 p.m., Trent received confirmation that Melanie had left the hospital and headed to Palmieri's penthouse. Surveillance photos showed her carrying a small overnight bag, likely containing the product from the safe, if it hadn't been moved already. The San Antonio night was unusually cool as Trent approached the luxury high-rise overlooking the River Walk. His DEA credentials bypassed building security, but he opted for the service elevator rather than the main one. The less digital trail, the better. The penthouse floor required a special access code, which Aisha had already extracted from the building's security system. As Trent approached the door, he heard raised voices inside. Can't just leave town, Vince. Melanie's voice, pitched higher with panic. It's already done, Palmieri responded. Diego's moved everything. We're flying to Belize tonight. The private terminal's ready. What about Leo? The hospital will. Forget the kid. He's with his pathetic father. Better for us anyway. Trent inserted a fiber optic camera under the door, confirming positions. Melanie stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows, arms crossed defensively. Palmieri paced between her and what appeared to be packed luggage. A third figure sat in a leather chair, back to the door, from the posture and custom suit visible, likely Diego Solano himself. The calm voice from the chair confirmed it. Your domestic drama doesn't interest me, Vincent. What concerns me is the security breach involving my product and a child who can identify you. Trent had expected Palmieri and possibly Melanie. Solano's presence was an unexpected bonus that required adjustment to his approach. He sent a coded text to the tactical team. Primary target confirmed at secondary location. Proceed with caution. Inside, Melanie's voice became pleading. Vince said it was an accident. Leo surprised him at the house. An accident resulting in a child with a broken arm and knowledge of our operation. Solano replied, his tone conversational. That's not an acceptable level of risk. The kid won't talk, Palmieri insisted. I scared him enough. Children's services will be involved now. Solano continued as if Palmieri hadn't spoken. Questions will be asked. The father may be damaged, but he's still a veteran with connections. Trent's hand tightened on his weapon at hearing himself described as damaged. The contempt in Solano's voice mirrored what Trent had heard in Melanie's for years. What are you suggesting? Melanie asked, her voice smaller now. Simple risk management, Solano replied. The child and father have an unfortunate accident tonight, while we're establishing our presence elsewhere. A tragic house fire, perhaps. The blood in Trent's veins turned to ice. Solano wasn't just planning to flee. He was arranging the murder of Trent and Leo to eliminate witnesses. That wasn't part of our arrangement. Melanie protested weakly. Your arrangement? Solano's laugh was genuine. My dear, you became property the moment you moved my product. There is no arrangement, only what serves my interests. Trent had heard enough. He sent the emergency execute signal to all teams and prepared to breach the penthouse door. Standard protocol required waiting for backup, but there was nothing standard about a direct threat to his son's life. As he positioned the compact breaching charge, he heard Palmieri's voice again. She's right, Diego. The husband is nothing. PTSD has him so messed up he can barely leave the house some days. He's not a threat. Everyone's a threat until they're not, Solano replied. In this business, loose ends. The breaching charge detonated, blowing the reinforced door inward with a concentrated force that minimized collateral damage. Trent entered in a tactical crouch, weapon raised, identifying and prioritizing threats in the milliseconds that training had burned into muscle memory. Palmieri reached for a weapon. Trent put a round through his shoulder, neutralizing without killing. A professional courtesy Palmieri hadn't shown Leo. Solano, displaying the reflexes that had kept him alive and free for years, had already drawn a compact pistol from beneath his suit jacket. Trent pivoted, firing twice in rapid succession. The first round struck Solano's weapon, sending it spinning. The second grazed his arm, the dealer's sudden movement spoiling Trent's aim. Melanie stood frozen, eyes wide with shock and recognition as her husband. Not the broken man she'd dismissed for years, but a precise, deadly DA agent, secured the room with mechanical efficiency. Federal agent, Trent announced, unnecessary now but ingrained procedure. Weapons down, hands where I can see them. Trent, Melanie whispered, disbelief warring with dawning horror. What is this? This, he replied, covering Solano with his weapon while securing Palmieri's gun, is me doing my job. DEA Special Agent Trent Harlow. The PTSD was part of my cover. That's not possible, she stammered. For 3 years you've been watching you. He finished for her, professional mask firmly in place despite the personal betrayal. While investigating the Solano cartel. Congratulations, honey. You're sleeping with the enemy. Chapter 5, Collapsing Skies. By midnight, as Trent had promised, the Solano cartel's San Antonio operation lay in ruins. 6 simultaneous raids captured 27 cartel members, including 3 of Diego's top lieutenants. Nearly 400 kilograms of heroin and cocaine were seized, along with weapons caches and financial records detailing money laundering operations across 3 states. The crown jewel of the operation, Diego Solano himself, sat in an interrogation room at the DEA's secure facility, his normally impeccable appearance disheveled, his confident demeanor replaced by cold calculation as he assessed his limited options. In an adjacent room, Vince Palmieri alternated between demands for a lawyer and offers to cooperate, the swagger evaporating as federal charges with minimum 20-year sentences were enumerated. Director Weber personally supervised the operations wrap-up, periodically checking the hospital where Leo remained under guard. The boy's stable, he informed Trent. Doctor says he'll need surgery to properly set the elbow, but long-term prognosis is good. Trent nodded tightly, reviewing arrest reports. Only those who knew him well could see the controlled fury beneath his professional exterior. In a third interrogation room sat Melanie, still in shock from the revelation of her husband's true identity. Unlike Solano and Palmieri, she wasn't handcuffed, a courtesy Trent had insisted upon despite protocol. You need to question her, Weber said, not a suggestion but a statement of fact. Aisha can handle it, Trent replied, not looking up from the reports. Agent Harlow. Weber's formal address cut through Trent's focus. Your wife has spent 8 months in direct contact with Solano's operation. She has insights no one else can provide. And yes, this is personal, but you're the one she'll talk to. With respect, sir, my objectivity is compromised. Your objectivity has been compromised for 3 years, Weber countered. Didn't stop you from running the most successful deep cover operation in DEA history. Trent finally met the director's gaze. She was willing to let them kill Leo. We don't know that, Weber said, though his tone suggested he believed otherwise. What we do know is that in approximately 4 hours, her lawyer will arrive and our window for direct questioning closes. Make it count, agent. The interrogation room felt smaller than its actual dimensions when Trent entered. Melanie looked up, mascara streaked down her face, designer blouse rumpled from hours in custody. Is Leo okay? She asked immediately. He's safe, Trent answered, keeping his voice neutral as he sat across from her. Surgery tomorrow for his elbow. I need to be there. That's not possible. Melanie's face hardened. You can't keep me from my son. Federal custody for drug trafficking and conspiracy tends to limit parental visitation. Trent replied evenly, opening a folder containing surveillance photos of Melanie with various cartel associates. Let's discuss your relationship with the Solano organization. I want a lawyer. That's your right. He'll be here at approximately 8 a.m. Trent laid out photos one by one. In the meantime, you should know what we already have. This is you accepting a package from Miguel Fuentes, Solano's distribution manager. This is you providing real estate documents for properties later used as stash houses. This is you at Diego's Alamo Heights mansion during a gathering of his lieutenants. With each photo, Melanie's expression shifted from defiance to resignation. It wasn't what you think, she finally said. Enlighten me. At first, it was just an affair. Vince was attentive in ways you hadn't been for years. Since my apparent PTSD began, Trent supplied. Melanie nodded. You were a ghost in our home, Trent. Jumping at shadows, unable to hold a job, barely communicating. Meanwhile, Leo needed stability. So you provided that stability by bringing cartel drugs into our home. That came later, she said, looking away. Vince introduced me to Diego as a real estate consultant. The commissions were enormous. I didn't ask questions at first. And when you figured it out? By then, I was already implicated. Small steps, Trent. Carrying a package. Introducing a buyer. Each one seeming barely across the line from the last. Trent kept his expression neutral, but inside, cold anger crystallized. Each of those small steps had been documented in DEA surveillance logs. Her gradual, willing corruption had been material evidence for his investigation. When did you start moving product yourself? Melanie's shoulders sagged. 2 months ago. They needed someone with clean credit and professional credentials to make bank deposits. Then packages. I told myself it was temporary. And Leo's arm? Was that temporary too? Her head snapped up. I never wanted Leo involved. Vince wasn't supposed to be at the house. When he called saying Leo had found something, she stopped abruptly. Continue. Trent prodded, recording device capturing every word. He said Leo got into the safe and found product. That he'd secured the situation. Her voice broke. I didn't know he'd hurt him, Trent. I swear to God. But you knew he was capable of violence, Trent pressed. You knew what kind of man he was. I thought I could manage him, she whispered. Like I managed everything else while you were lost in your own trauma. The irony wasn't lost on Trent. He played the role of trauma victim so convincingly that it had driven his wife into criminal conspiracy. What about tonight? He asked. Solano was planning to have Leo and me killed. Were you managing that too? No. Melanie's denial was vehement. When Diego suggested that, I was trying to find a way out. There's audio, Melanie. Your objection was pretty weak for someone whose child was targeted. She looked away, shame finally breaking through her defenses. I was scared. Diego doesn't take contradiction well. Neither does the federal justice system. Trent replied, gathering the photos. You're facing a minimum of 15 years under RICO statutes. Conspiracy, drug trafficking, money laundering. The list is substantial. What about Leo? She asked, voice small. He'll be with me, Trent said firmly. Where he'll be safe. As he stood to leave, Melanie called after him. Was any of it real, Trent? Us? Or was I just part of your cover from the beginning? He paused at the door, allowing himself one moment of personal truth amid the professional wreckage. I loved you, Melanie. That was never an act. Neither was watching you choose Palmieri over our family. The door closed with finality between them. Outside, Aisha waited with updated situation reports. Solano's lawyer landed at the airport, she informed him. High-powered firm from Miami. Won't help him, Trent replied. We've got him dead to rights on attempted murder conspiracy from the penthouse recording alone. The rest is just determining the length of his sentence. And Melanie? Trent's jaw tightened. Process her like any other conspirator. No special treatment. Aisha studied her partner's face. You know, for 3 years you pretended to be broken while staying whole inside. Don't let this actually break you, Trent. I'm fine, he responded automatically. No, you're not. But you will be. She handed him a secure phone. Preston's on the line. Leo's asking for you. For the first time since the operation began, Trent's professional facade cracked slightly. He took the phone and walked to a private corner of the facility. Hey, champ, he said, voice gentle. How's the arm? Leo's voice came through small but clear. It hurts. Where's Mom? Trent closed his eyes briefly. She's helping us understand some things. I'll explain everything soon. Mr. Cahill says you caught bad guys tonight. Real bad ones. That's right. Was Mom's boyfriend one of them? Trent leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted beyond measure. Yes, Leo. He was. There was a long pause before Leo asked the question Trent had been dreading. Is Mom one of the bad guys too? For 3 years, Trent had lived a necessary lie. Now, facing his son's direct question, he couldn't bring himself to continue lying, even to protect the boy's feelings. She made some bad choices, Leo. Got involved with dangerous people. Is that why she let him hurt me? The simple, devastating question nearly shattered Trent's control. Leo, listen to me. What happened to you wasn't your fault. None of this is. And I'm going to make sure you're safe from now on. Promise. I promise, Trent said, conviction absolute. Get some rest. I'll be there when you wake up. As he ended the call, Weber approached with a concerned expression. Problem? No, sir. Just checking on my son. Weber nodded. You've been under for 3 years, Harlow. Take some leave. Be with your boy. After we've processed everyone, Trent replied. I need to see this through. What neither of them could anticipate was that the Solano cartel's reach extended far beyond San Antonio, and that Diego's arrest had triggered contingency plans designed specifically to target those who brought him down. Chapter 6. Serpents Uncovered. Dawn broke over San Antonio as Trent finally left the DEA facility. The raids had yielded more intelligence than anticipated. Solano's operation extended into Houston, New Orleans, and as far north as Chicago, with tentacles in legitimate businesses throughout the region. Trent drove directly to the hospital, where Preston Cahill greeted him outside Leo's room. He's still sleeping, Preston reported. Doctors say surgery's scheduled for 10. Trent nodded, exhaustion evident in the shadows beneath his eyes. Any change in security status? Nothing concerning. Rita's on duty inside, Thompson's team covering the perimeter. After checking surveillance feeds on his phone, Trent entered the room quietly. Leo lay sleeping, his broken arm elevated on pillows, and 4 dripping pain medication into his veins. Trent sank into the chair beside the bed, allowing himself a moment of unguarded emotion now that no one but his unconscious son could see. "I'm sorry, champ," he whispered. "I never thought she'd let it go this far." Leo stirred slightly, eyes fluttering open. "Dad," he mumbled. "I'm here," Trent replied, gently taking his son's good hand. "How's the pain?" "Weird," Leo said groggily. "It's there but not there? Like watching it on TV." "That's the good drugs," Trent said with a small smile. "Enjoy them while they last." Leo's face grew serious, the medication making him more direct than usual. "Is Mom in jail?" Trent hesitated only briefly. "Yes, she's in federal custody." "Good," Leo said with unexpected vehemence. "She watched him hurt me, Dad. She was there." The revelation hit Trent like physical impact. "What?" "The report said Palmieri was alone when she came home when I was looking at the safe," Leo continued, words slightly slurred. "They were arguing. When I asked what the white stuff was, he grabbed my arm. She just watched. Said I shouldn't have been snooping." Cold fury washed through Trent, crystallizing into something harder and more permanent. The interrogation recording had omitted this detail. Either Melanie had deliberately lied, or she'd compartmentalized her complicity in a way even Trent's trained observation had missed. "I need to make a call," Trent said, squeezing Leo's hand gently. "Rest now. I'll be right outside." In the hallway, Trent contacted Weber directly, summarizing Leo's statement. "We'll need a formal deposition when he's recovered," Weber noted. "And Melanie's plea deal discussions?" "On hold, effective immediately," Weber confirmed. Child endangerment changes the equation significantly. As Trent ended the call, his secure phone pinged with an encrypted message from Aisha. "Package from Miami arrived early. Bringing special delivery." The coded message indicated that Solano's lawyer had arrived sooner than expected, likely via private jet, and was demanding immediate access to his client. The special delivery meant Aisha was personally escorting the attorney to prevent any unauthorized communication. What happened next occurred with the synchronized of long-planned contingency. At exactly 7:23 a.m., power to the hospital's east wing, where Leo's room was located, cut out, emergency generators failing to engage. Simultaneously, 3 cell phone towers surrounding the hospital experienced service disruptions. Trent recognized the attack immediately. "Preston, lock it down." Before Cahill could respond, 3 men in maintenance uniforms rounded the corner, weapons already drawn. Trent shoved Preston aside as gunfire erupted, diving for cover behind a supply cart. Drawing his backup weapon from an ankle holster, Trent returned fire born of years of training. One attacker fell immediately, a clean shot to the center mass. The second managed to get off another round, grazing Trent's shoulder before a return shot neutralized the threat. The third attacker, recognizing the situation had deteriorated, attempted retreat. Preston, recovered from his initial surprise, cut off the escape route, and subdued the man with a flying tackle. "Status," Trent called, applying pressure to his wounded shoulder. "Contained," Preston replied, securing the surviving attacker with zip ties. "But we need to move Leo." This was coordinated. There could be more. Trent's tactical mind processed implications rapidly. The simultaneous infrastructure attacks, the hospital infiltration. This wasn't just a hastily organized retaliation. This was a pre-planned contingency triggered by Solano's arrest. "Aisha," Trent said suddenly, grabbing his phone. She's escorting the lawyer. The call connected immediately. We're compromised, Aisha said without preamble, ambient sounds indicating she was moving rapidly. The lawyer tried to pass something to Solano. When I intercepted, 3 agents collapsed, some kind of aerosol agent in his briefcase. Status of Solano? Secured. Weber's ordered complete lockdown. But that's not all. There's chatter about secondary targets. Hospital, Trent confirmed grimly. They just hit us here. Moving Leo to secure location Alpha now. As medical personnel responded to the shooting, Trent and Preston coordinated Leo's emergency transfer, moving him via service elevator to a waiting armored SUV. The boy, groggy but alert enough to understand danger, remained remarkably calm. Are they after me because of what I saw? He asked as Trent secured him in the vehicle. Partly, Trent answered honestly, checking his weapon. But mainly because of what I've done. The man I arrested is very powerful and very angry. Like a real villain, Leo observed. Childhood framework simplifying the complex reality. Exactly like that, Trent agreed, nodding to Preston to drive while he made calls arranging additional security. What neither Trent nor the DEA had fully appreciated was the extent of Solano's contingency planning. While the attacks on the hospital and DEA facility appeared to be the main thrust, they actually served as distractions from the real operation. At precisely 8:05 a.m., as Leo was being transported to a secure DEA safe house, alarms triggered at the downtown holding facility where Melanie awaited processing. Initial reports suggested a fire in the ventilation system, prompting partial evacuation protocols. By the time Trent received notification, Melanie Harlow had vanished from custody. What do you mean vanished? He demanded, voice deadly calm as Preston drove through San Antonio traffic toward the safe house. During evacuation, 2 marshals were incapacitated with some kind of chemical agent, Weber explained through the secure line. 4 detainees missing, including your wife. Surveillance shows a black SUV, no plates, leaving the scene. Solano's contingency, Trent concluded. The attacks were coordinated distractions while they extracted high-value assets. But why Melanie? Weber questioned. She's not high-level cartel. Information security, Trent replied, connecting dots rapidly. She knows names, properties, accounts, and she knows I'll testify against her. Solano wants her silenced before she can flip. The implications hung heavily in the air. Melanie wasn't being rescued. She was being retrieved for elimination once her utility ended. We have an APB out, Weber assured him. Airports, bus terminals, all monitored. They won't use conventional transportation, Trent countered. Check private airfields within a 100-mile radius. And get me satellite tracking on Palmieri's known properties. As they arrived at the safe house, a nondescript ranch-style home in a quiet suburb, Trent helped Leo inside while reviewing security protocols with the protection team. The boy's surgery would now be performed by a DEA-cleared surgeon in a secured medical facility that evening. Dad, Leo said as medical staff settled him in a reinforced bedroom. Are they going to kill Mom? The question, delivered with a child's directness, caught Trent unprepared. Why would you think that? Because she knows things, Leo replied simply. That's what happens in movies when someone knows too much about the bad guys. Trent sat beside his son, choosing honesty over comforting lies. We're doing everything possible to find her first. Even after what she did. Even after that, Trent confirmed. Justice doesn't mean vengeance, Leo. It means following the law, even when it's hard. As Leo finally drifted to sleep, Preston approached with a tablet displaying satellite imagery. We've got movement at Palmieri's hunting ranch near Kerrville, he reported quietly. Heat signatures consistent with multiple personnel. Trent studied the images. That's not an extraction point. Too remote. No landing strip for planes. Could be a stopping point before moving her to Mexico, Preston suggested. Or a disposal site, Trent concluded grimly. How quickly can we get a tactical team there? 90 minutes minimum. The ranch is isolated, defensible position. Trent made his decision. I'm going now. You stay with Leo. Trent, that's not protocol. Wait for backup. By then it could be too late. Trent checked his weapon and grabbed a tactical vest from the safe house supplies. If she's still alive, it's because they need information from her first. That gives me a window. Before Preston could offer further objection, Trent's secure phone chimed with an incoming text. from Melanie's phone. They're going to kill me. Solano's brother is here. Hunting cabin. Help. Preston read the message over Trent's shoulder. Could be a trap. Almost certainly is, Trent agreed. But that confirms she's still alive, and the location matches our satellite data. Wait for the tactical team, Preston urged. Trent's expression hardened. She was willing to let them hurt our son, Preston. But she's still Leo's mother, and I won't let him grow up knowing I could have tried to save her and didn't. As Trent headed for the door, Preston called after him. What do I tell Leo if something happens to you too? Trent paused, the weight of responsibility momentarily visible on his features. Tell him his dad never stopped being a hero, even when it was hard. Chapter 7. Wolves at the Gates. The hunting ranch sat nestled among the hills outside Kerrville, 30 acres of dense woodland surrounding a main lodge and 3 smaller cabins. Trent approached from the south, using the terrain for cover, advanced thermal optics scanning for security measures and personnel. 3 years of deep cover hadn't dulled his field craft. If anything, the constant vigilance required to maintain his PTSD persona had sharpened his situational awareness. The satellite imagery had identified 8 heat signatures distributed throughout the property, with 3 concentrated in the smallest cabin at the property's northern edge. Trent circled wide, establishing visual confirmation before committing to an approach vector. 2 armed guards patrolled the perimeter, carrying automatic weapons and communicating via radio at regular intervals. Their movements suggested professional training. These weren't typical cartel soldiers, but specialized security, likely part of Solano's inner protection detail. Trent synchronized his movements with their patrol pattern, advancing during their radio check-ins when ambient noise would mask any sounds he might make. As he reached the edge of the clearing surrounding the cabins, he accessed the DEA tactical frequency. Harlow on site, he reported quietly. 8 tangos confirmed, heavily armed. Requesting status on backup. Tactical team 30 minutes out, came Weber's response. Helicopter support approved, but weather's delaying deployment. Storm clouds gathered on the horizon, nature providing both cover and complication. The approaching rain would mask sound and potentially thermal signatures, but would also limit visibility and complicate extraction. Proceeding to primary structure, Trent informed them, knowing that protocol demanded he wait, but unwilling to delay when Melanie's life hung in the balance. Through high-powered optics, Trent observed movement in the small cabin, a figure matching Melanie's description seated in a chair, hands apparently bound, while 2 men stood nearby. One matched photographs of Xavier Solano, Diego's younger brother and security chief. Trent's approach to the cabin required neutralizing the perimeter guards without alerting the main security force. He waited until the patrol routes separated maximally, then moved with swift efficiency. The first guard never saw him coming. A silent approach from behind, arm locked around the man's throat in a blood choke that rendered him unconscious in seconds. Trent secured him with zip ties and concealed the body in dense underbrush. The second guard noticed his partner's absence during the next radio check. As he moved to investigate, Trent created a distraction by triggering a remote noise device 30 yards east, standard DEA surveillance equipment that mimicked animal sounds convincingly. When the guard moved to investigate, Trent struck with the same, neutralizing the threat and securing the perimeter breach point. With external security compromised, Trent advanced to the cabin itself, pausing beneath a window to gather intelligence on the situation inside. Your husband's team seized everything. Xavier Solano's voice came clearly through the thin walls. Bank accounts, property deeds, client lists. You're going to help us recover what's left. I don't know anything about the accounts, Melanie's voice replied, strained but defiant. Vince handled that side. Don't lie to me, Xavier responded, his tone conversational even as a sharp slap punctuated his words. Diego kept records of everyone who accessed the financial information. Your name appears 12 times in the last month alone. Access doesn't mean understanding, Melanie countered. I was a courier, not an accountant. The second man spoke, his voice carrying a heavier accent. The offshore accounts require authentication codes that change weekly. Your husband will have frozen everything he knew about, but there are contingency accounts only accessible with in-person verification. Which is why you're going to accompany us to Cayman Islands tomorrow, Xavier continued. You'll verify your identity, access the accounts, and transfer the funds before the DEA can trace them. And then you'll kill me, Melanie concluded flatly. Xavier laughed. Now why would we do that? You've proven yourself useful. There's always room for talented people in our organization. You're lying, Melanie said. I heard Diego give the order at the penthouse. Loose ends get eliminated. My brother is currently enjoying federal hospitality because of your husband, Xavier replied, anger finally showing through his controlled demeanor. So yes, eventually you'll answer for that. But business comes first. The conversation confirmed what Trent had suspected. Melanie wasn't just a witness to be silenced, but a tool for accessing emergency funds. The tight timeline presented both challenge and opportunity. If they planned to transport her for banking purposes, they needed her alive and reasonably intact. Trent completed his reconnaissance of the cabin, identifying entry points and potential angles of fire. The main room contained Xavier, his lieutenant, and Melanie. 2 additional guards were positioned in what appeared to be a kitchen area, while the remaining 3 were in the main lodge approximately 50 yards away. With tactical support still at least 20 minutes out, Trent made his decision. The approaching storm would provide cover, but also potentially cut off communication with his backup. The window for successful extraction was closing. His strategy required dividing the enemy forces, creating confusion, and extracting Melanie before reinforcements from the main lodge could respond effectively. Standard DEA protocol prohibited such high-risk solo operations, but this had ceased to be a standard operation the moment Leo's arm was broken. Trent placed small incendiary devices, non-lethal but highly disruptive, at strategic points around the property, rigged to trigger in sequence. As the first raindrops began to fall, he activated the remote detonator. The first explosion came from the property's generator shed, plunging the entire compound into darkness. The second and third, timed 30 seconds apart, ignited at opposite ends of the property, creating the impression of a coordinated multi-point attack. Through his earpiece, Trent heard the confused radio chatter as the remaining guards tried to assess the threat. As anticipated, Xavier ordered his lieutenant and 1 guard to investigate, leaving himself with just 1 guard in the cabin with Melanie. Thunder rolled across the hills as Trent made his approach, the storm providing perfect cover for his entry through the cabin's rear window. The guard turned at the sound of breaking glass, but too late. Trent's first shot took him cleanly through the shoulder, neutralizing without killing. Xavier Solano reacted with the trained reflexes of a man accustomed to violence, drawing a weapon and firing toward the window in one fluid motion. But Trent had already rolled left, coming up behind a heavy wooden table that absorbed the incoming rounds. Federal agent, Trent announced, though the declaration was largely ceremonial at this point. Drop your weapon. Agent Harlow, Xavier replied with surprising calm, keeping his gun trained on Melanie's head. Your reputation precedes you. 3 years undercover, very impressive. My brother spoke highly of your dedication. Through the rain lashing against the cabin, Trent could see Melanie's expression, terror mingled with disbelief at her husband's sudden appearance. This doesn't end well for you, Xavier, Trent said evenly. Tactical teams inbound. Helicopter support right behind them. Your brother's organization is finished. Xavier smiled thinly. Organizations like ours don't finish, Agent Harlow. They evolve. Today's setback is tomorrow's opportunity. Not for you, Trent countered. Shooting a federal agent's wife while holding her hostage? There's no deal that gets you out of that. Perhaps, Xavier conceded. But there's a certain professional satisfaction in denying you a win. His finger tightened on the trigger. Trent fired first, his shot threading the narrow space between Melanie's head and Xavier's hand. The bullet struck, shattering the cartel lieutenant's wrist and sending his weapon clattering to the floor. Xavier howled in pain and rage as Trent vaulted the table, securing the fallen weapon and covering both subjects. Outside, gunfire erupted as the returning guards encountered the first elements of the DEA tactical team arriving on scene. Trent, Melanie whispered, shock evident in her voice. Don't talk, he replied, quickly cutting her restraints while keeping Xavier covered. Move to the door. Stay low. As she complied, Xavier spoke through gritted teeth, clutching his shattered wrist. You know she was going to let us kill you and your son? Diego offered her immunity if she helped lure you out. Shut up, Melanie hissed. Tell him, Xavier continued. eyes gleaming with malice despite his injury. Tell him how you volunteered your husband's service weapon for our use. Poetic, you called it, for the broken soldier to apparently snap and kill his family before himself. Trent's expression remained professionally neutral, but inwardly, the final pieces clicked into place. The gun from his safe, the one Melanie thought he couldn't access, wasn't just being stored there. It was being prepared for his and Leo's murder, wiped clean of her prints, but carrying his. That true? He asked Melanie, voice deadly calm. Her silence was answer enough. Tactical moving in, came the welcome announcement through Trent's earpiece. East side clear. Cabin secured. Trent responded. One hostile down, one in custody. Civilian asset recovered. As DEA agents flooded the cabin, securing Xavier and cataloging evidence, Trent guided Melanie outside toward an armored vehicle. Rain soaked them both, washing away blood and the last pretenses between them. You were going to let them murder our son, Trent said quietly, the words not a question but a final confirmation. Melanie stared at the ground, shoulders slumped in defeat. I didn't think they'd really do it. It was just contingency planning. Like the contingency of using my service weapon? My fingerprints. She didn't answer directly. How did you find me? You texted me, Trent replied. From a phone they apparently didn't know you still had. I didn't text you, she said, confusion evident. They took my phone when they grabbed me from the holding facility. Trent processed this new information rapidly. If Melanie hadn't sent the text, then someone else had. Someone with access to her phone records, who knew her unlock code. Someone deliberately drawing him to the cabin, alone, ahead of tactical support. The realization came as he helped Melanie into the vehicle. This hadn't been a simple extraction by Xavier to recover funds. This had been an elaborately staged trap, not just for Melanie, but for Trent himself. And he'd walked right into it, exactly as planned. Get down, he shouted, shoving Melanie fully into the vehicle as a high-caliber round shattered the air where his head had been moments before. The crisis response that had saved his life countless times activated instantly. Trent rolled beneath the vehicle, identified the shooter's position from the muzzle flash on a distant ridge, and relayed coordinates to the tactical team. Sniper, northeast ridge, approximately 800 yards. Officer down, request immediate air support. As agents scrambled for cover and returned suppressing fire toward the ridge, Trent assessed the tactical situation with cold clarity. The cabin assault, Melanie's capture, even Xavier's presence, all had been orchestrated to bring Trent to this precise location, vulnerable and exposed. The question remained, who had orchestrated it? Xavier was in custody, Diego imprisoned. The Solano organization was in disarray after the raids. Unless it wasn't. Unless the entire operation, from Leo's broken arm to tonight's trap, had been manipulated by someone with intimate knowledge of both the cartel and the DEA's methods. Someone who knew exactly how Trent would respond to each provocation. As helicopter spotlights cut through the storm clouds, illuminating the ridge and driving the sniper from position, Trent came to a chilling conclusion. The real enemy might not be the Solano cartel at all, but someone far closer, someone who had just failed in their attempt to eliminate the DEA's most successful deep cover agent. Someone who now knew Trent was onto them. Chapter 8. Truth in Shadows. The DEA safe house outside San Antonio had been converted into an impromptu command center following the Kerrville operation. Leo rested in a secured bedroom, post-surgery but stable, while Trent coordinated with Weber and the tactical team to process intelligence from Xavier Solano's capture. Ballistics confirmed it, Aisha reported, handing Trent a tablet displaying the analysis. The sniper round matches specialty ammunition used by this group. She indicated photographs of 3 men. Ex-military contractors, worked private security for Diego Solano during his legitimate businessman phase. Not cartel soldiers, Trent noted, studying the images. Professional hitters. Exactly, Weber agreed. This wasn't some impulsive retaliation. This was a coordinated attempt to eliminate a key federal witness and the agent who built the case. Trent's thoughts returned to the text message that had drawn him to the cabin. The message Melanie insisted she hadn't sent. The trap was too precise, he said. Someone knew exactly how I'd respond. Knew I'd go in ahead of tactical. Someone who knows your operational patterns, Preston observed from his position near the monitoring equipment. The implication hung in the air, the potential for a leak within the DEA itself. In the aftermath of the Kerrville incident, Weber had restricted operational knowledge to the bare minimum team, implementing communication protocols that hadn't been used since the earliest days of the Solano investigation. What about Melanie? Aisha asked. Could she have been playing both sides? Possible, Trent acknowledged. But unlikely she orchestrated the sniper. She was in the vehicle with me. Would have been collateral damage if the shot connected. Unless that was calculated risk, Preston countered. Sacrifice a compromised asset to eliminate the primary threat. Trent considered this. Where is she now? Secured at the Federal Detention Center downtown, Weber replied. Maximum security, no outside communications. We've got our best people interrogating her about the Cayman accounts Xavier mentioned. Outside, the storm that had provided cover during the Kerrville operation continued its assault on San Antonio, lightning occasionally illuminating the safe house's reinforced windows. Trent moved to check on Leo, finding his son sleeping peacefully, pain medication ensuring comfort during his recovery. Watching his son breathe steadily, Trent allowed himself a rare moment of vulnerability, the magnitude of recent events washing over him. For 3 years, he'd maintained his cover flawlessly, compartmentalizing his true self from the broken veteran he portrayed. Now, with that cover shattered, integrating his fractured identities proved more challenging than anticipated. More concerning was the growing certainty that someone had compromised the operation at a fundamental level, someone with intimate knowledge of both Trent's personal and professional vulnerabilities. His contemplation was interrupted by Leo's stirring. Dad? The boy mumbled, eyes fluttering open. Is Mom okay? The question pierced Trent's professional armor. Even after everything, Leo's first concern was for the mother who had failed to protect him. It spoke to a compassion Trent feared his years of deception might have damaged. She's safe, Trent answered carefully. In a secure facility while we sort everything out. Leo processed this with remarkable maturity. She's still in trouble though, right? For the drugs and stuff? Yes, Trent confirmed, seeing no value in sugarcoating reality for a child who had already endured so much. She made some very bad decisions that have consequences. Like Mr. Palmieri breaking my arm? That's one consequence, yes. But there will be legal ones too. Leo nodded thoughtfully. Will I have to testify? Tell a judge what happened? Possibly, Trent acknowledged. But not for a while, and only if you're comfortable doing it. I want to, Leo said with unexpected firmness. She watched it happen, Dad. She told him it was okay to hurt me if I promised not to tell anyone about the drugs. The revelation landed like a physical blow. Melanie hadn't just failed to protect their son. She had actively sanctioned his injury to protect her criminal activities. Why didn't you tell me this before? Trent asked gently. Because. Leo hesitated, vulnerability showing through his brave front. Because I thought you wouldn't believe me. You always took Mom's side when she said you were. When she said your brain wasn't working right. The painful irony wasn't lost on Trent. His deep cover as a PTSD-afflicted veteran had created precisely the environment where his son felt unable to trust him with the truth. Leo, listen to me, Trent said, taking his son's good hand carefully. I'm so sorry I made you feel that way. The truth is, I've been working undercover for the DEA this whole time. The PTSD, the episodes, that was all part of my cover to investigate dangerous people. Like a secret agent? Leo asked, a hint of awe creeping into his voice. Something like that, Trent smiled slightly. But I need you to know that no matter what, I will always believe you. And I will always protect you. That's not undercover. That's a promise. As Leo processed this revelation, a commotion from the main room drew Trent's attention. Making sure Leo was comfortable, he moved quickly to investigate, finding Weber and Aisha huddled around a computer terminal. We've got something, Aisha announced, gesturing him over. Forensics just finished analyzing Melanie's phone, the one recovered from her purse during processing. The text to you definitely came from her device, but it was triggered remotely. Remotely? Trent questioned. How? Spyware, Aisha explained, pointing to code sequences on the screen. Sophisticated stuff, not commercially available. Someone installed monitoring software on her phone that could activate the camera, microphone, and messaging systems without her knowledge. Can you trace it? Working on it, but the control server bounces through multiple proxies. However, The installation timestamp is interesting. 18 months ago, well before she became involved with Palmieri. The timeline shifted Trent's understanding dramatically. If the surveillance of Melanie preceded her affair with Palmieri, it suggested something far more concerning, that she might have been deliberately targeted as a vulnerability in Trent's life, rather than accidentally becoming involved through Palmieri. Check my phones too, Trent instructed. Both the personal one and my burner. If they compromised Melanie's, they might have reached mine. As Aisha began the process, Weber pulled Trent aside. There's more. Xavier Solano started talking after medical treatment. Seems he's not interested in taking the fall like his brother. What's he offering? Claims there's a mole in the DEA, Weber said grimly. Someone who's been feeding information to the Solanos for years, helping them stay ahead of investigations. Could be misdirection, Trent noted. Standard tactic to sow distrust among opposing forces. That's what I thought too, Weber agreed. Until he gave us this. He handed Trent a memory card. Surveillance photographs of a DEA agent meeting with Diego Solano 2 years ago. Face isn't clear, but build and posture analysis is concerning. Trent inserted the card into a secure terminal, bringing up the photographs. Though grainy and taken from distance, they clearly showed a man with military bearing meeting Diego Solano at a private airstrip. The face wasn't visible, but something about the posture struck Trent as disturbingly familiar. We need to run this through enhancing software, he began, when Aisha interrupted with urgent news. Your burner phone's clean, she reported, but I found something on your personal device, a dormant tracking program tied to the same control server as Melanie's spyware. The pieces began aligning with alarming clarity. So someone was monitoring both Melanie and me, potentially steering her toward Palmieri while tracking my movements. Which explains how the sniper knew exactly where you'd be, Weber concluded. Not just at the cabin, but your precise exit point. As the implications solidified, Preston Cahill approached from the monitoring station. Perimeter check complete, he reported. All clear, though the storms knocked out one of our southern sensor arrays. Something in Preston's casual delivery triggered Trent's instincts, a subtle dissonance he couldn't immediately identify. He glanced at the surveillance photographs again, studying the figure's stance, the way weight distributed across the shoulders. Preston, Trent said carefully, maintaining a neutral tone. When did you first start teaching at Leo's school? The question seemed non sequitur, but Preston answered smoothly. 3 years ago, right at the start of the Solano operation. What? Just confirming timeline details, Trent replied, catching Weber's eye meaningfully. Did we get the ballistics report on the ammunition used by the Kerrville sniper? Aisha just mentioned it, Preston replied. Special Forces grade, if I recall. That detail wasn't in Aisha's briefing, Trent noted quietly, hand moving imperceptibly closer to his sidearm. She mentioned contractors, but not Special Forces grade ammunition. The atmosphere in the room shifted palpably as everyone processed the implication. Preston's expression remained unchanged for a beat, then transformed with frightening efficiency from concerned colleague to calculated predator. 3 years, he said, sighing almost regretfully. 3 years watching you play broken veteran while building a case that should have died a dozen times. You're good, Trent. Better than anyone gave you credit for. Weber and Aisha had already drawn weapons, training them on Preston, who made no move toward his own sidearm. How long? Trent asked, the betrayal cutting deeper than he would have expected. Preston wasn't just a colleague. He had been a trusted ally, the man assigned to protect Leo during school hours. Before the Solano operation even began, Preston admitted, Diego recognized potential in the American drug market that his competitors couldn't see. All he needed was intelligence on enforcement operations, advance warning of investigations. So you sold out your badge, Weber said, disgust evident in his voice. I provided consultation services, Preston corrected with disturbing professionalism. And I was worth every penny. Until you, Trent. He shook his head ruefully. Your deep cover operation was too compartmentalized. I couldn't get enough details to warn Diego properly. So you targeted my wife, Trent concluded, the final pieces locking into place. Installed monitoring software on her phone, tracked her movements, probably even arranged her accidental meeting with Palmieri. Preston inclined his head slightly, acknowledging the accusation. She was vulnerable, resentful of your apparent condition, ambitious beyond your modest lifestyle. The perfect pressure point. And Leo? Trent asked, voice dangerously soft. Was breaking my son's arm part of your consultation services too? For the first time, Preston showed a flicker of discomfort. That wasn't planned. The boy's discovery of the product was unexpected. Palmieri overreacted. You were his teacher, Trent pressed, genuine anger finally breaking through his professional control. You were supposed to protect him. And I did, Preston countered. Palmieri wanted to eliminate the witness entirely. I convinced him a warning would suffice. The casual calculation with which Preston had bargained for Leo's life ignited something primal in Trent, a furious certainty that transcended professional obligation. When the sniper missed at Kerrville, Trent said, connecting final dots, you arranged the secondary plan. The malfunctioning sensor array you just reported? Preston smiled thinly. There are 3 men approaching from the south side as we speak. The storm provides excellent cover for their approach. They should be breaching within 2 minutes. Without hesitation, Weber activated the emergency evacuation protocol, silent alarms triggering throughout the safe house as security personnel moved to defensive positions. Get Leo, Weber ordered Trent. Extraction vehicles in the garage. We'll handle Preston and delay the assault team. Trent hesitated, torn between operational necessity and personal vengeance against the man who had endangered his son. Go, Aisha urged. Leo needs you. We've got this. With a final glance at Preston, memorizing the face of betrayal he would never forget, Trent moved swiftly toward his son's room as the first sounds of assault breached the perimeter. The night exploded into violence around them as Trent carried Leo, still groggy from medication, toward the reinforced garage where an armored SUV waited. Behind them, gunfire erupted as DEA personnel engaged the mercenary team. What's happening? Leo asked, clutching his father with his good arm. Some bad people found us, Trent explained simply, settling his son into the vehicle. But we're leaving now. You're safe with me. As the garage door raised, revealing rain-slicked roads beyond, Trent made his decision. The official extraction plan called for movement to another DEA facility, but with Preston's betrayal exposed, no official location could be considered secure. Instead, Trent activated a contingency he had established years earlier but never expected to use. A completely off-book safe location known only to him, secured with resources outside official channels. As they drove away from the firefight behind them, Leo watched his father's face in the dashboard lights. Dad, are we running away? No, champ, Trent replied, eyes fixed on the road ahead. We're just changing the battlefield. Sometimes that's how you win the war. The storm enveloped their vehicle as they disappeared into the night, leaving behind the wreckage of betrayal and the promise of a reckoning to come. Chapter 9, Reckoning Dawn. The cabin outside Fredericksburg wasn't on any DEA asset list or property record connected to Trent Harlow. Purchased through layers of LLCs using cash from his pre-DEA military days, it represented the paranoid contingency planning of a man who had spent his career infiltrating organizations where betrayal meant death. For 3 days, Trent and Leo remained off-grid, communicating with Weber only through encrypted channels established after Preston's betrayal was uncovered. The firefight at the safe house had resulted in 2 DEA agents wounded and one of the mercenaries killed, but Preston Cahill had escaped during the confusion, a ghost armed with intimate knowledge of DEA operations and personnel. How much longer do we have to stay here? Leo asked on the morning of the 4th day, his broken arm healing but his patience wearing thin. Trent looked up from the secure laptop where he'd been reviewing case files. Getting bored of beating your old man at chess? No. Leo grinned momentarily before growing serious again. But I want to know when it's over. When we can stop running. We're not running, Trent corrected gently. We're regrouping. Sometimes that's the most important part of any operation. The truth, which Trent carefully shielded from his son, was that the Solano operation had fractured in ways nobody had anticipated. Preston's betrayal had compromised not just the current case, but potentially years of DEA operations. Internal affairs investigators were examining every case Preston had touched, every agent he'd worked with. Most concerning was the intelligence suggesting Preston had connected with remnants of the Solano organization that had escaped the initial raids. Xavier Solano remained in custody, But Diego's extensive network included operators across multiple countries, many now desperate and seeking vengeance. Trent's secure phone vibrated with an incoming message from Weber, confirmed location on primary target. Extraction team ready. Your presence requested but not required. The primary target wasn't Preston or any Solano lieutenant. It was Melanie. Following her detailed confession about the Cayman accounts, federal marshals had arranged her transfer to a witness security facility where she would provide testimony against the entire Solano operation. Trent stared at the message, conflicting emotions warring within him. As a DEA agent, his presence during the transfer made operational sense. He knew Melanie's patterns and behaviors better than anyone. But as a husband and father, the thought of facing her again, knowing what she had been willing to sacrifice, filled him with cold fury. You're thinking about Mom again, Leo observed with uncanny perception. You get this little line between your eyebrows. Trent smiled despite himself. When did you get so observant? Leo shrugged his good shoulder. I watch people a lot. Especially since you were pretending to be sick. The comment landed heavily. In his focus on the operation and Melanie's betrayal, Trent had perhaps underestimated the impact his undercover persona had on Leo, the confusion and uncertainty of watching his father seemingly deteriorate. I'm sorry about that, Trent said sincerely. Keeping you in the dark was the hardest part of the whole operation. Harder than pretending for Mom. Much harder, Trent confirmed. Your mom and I, that relationship was already changing before the operation began. But you, he reached out to gently ruffle Leo's hair. You were always my center, the reason for everything. Leo absorbed this with thoughtful silence before asking, Are you going to help transport Mom to the witness place? Trent raised an eyebrow. How do you know about that? I heard you talking to Director Weber last night, Leo admitted. The walls aren't that thick. Rather than scold his son for eavesdropping, Trent recognized the intelligence gathering for what it was, a child trying to make sense of a shattered world by collecting information. I haven't decided yet, Trent answered honestly. Director Weber says they can handle it without me. But you don't believe him, Leo observed. It's not about belief. It's about responsibility, Leo finished. Like you taught me. We're responsible for our choices and their effects. Trent studied his son's face, seeing beyond the childhood features to the thoughtful young man emerging from tragedy. When did you get so wise? Around the same time you stopped being broken, Leo replied with unexpected insight. You should go, not because Mom deserves it, but because you need to finish this. The simple clarity of his son's perspective crystallized Trent's decision. He sent a brief reply to Weber, will participate. Condition, Leo remains under personal protection of Director Weber during operation. The response came immediately, agreed. Extraction proceeds at 0800 tomorrow. That evening, as Leo slept, Trent prepared, checking weapons, reviewing transfer protocols, studying facility layouts. The operational parameters were straightforward. Melanie would be transported from federal detention to a private airfield, then flown to a secure facility in Virginia where Justice Department attorneys would prepare her testimony. The greatest vulnerability was the ground transport phase, 23 minutes from detention center to airfield, through areas of San Antonio that couldn't be completely secured in advance without attracting attention. It was precisely the kind of vulnerability Preston would recognize and exploit. Morning arrived with clear skies and rising humidity, the June heat already building as Trent drove Leo to the secure DEA facility where Weber waited personally. The director's presence at a prisoner transfer was unusual, a measure of the operation's importance and the threat level assessed. You don't have to do this, Weber said quietly after Leo had been escorted to a comfortable room with age-appropriate entertainment and discreet security. The marshals are fully capable. The marshals don't know what they're really dealing with, Trent countered. Preston doesn't just know our protocols. He helped write some of them. And he knows Melanie's psychological profile better than anyone except me. Weber nodded reluctantly. The transport team's already at the detention center. Melanie doesn't know you'll be participating. Good, Trent replied. Let's keep it that way until we're en route. The detention center's administrative processing took less time than anticipated, Melanie's paperwork having been prepared in advance. When she emerged into the secure transfer area, wearing standard-issue clothing and restraints, she looked smaller than Trent remembered. diminished by captivity and consequences. Her expression when she saw him registered genuine shock, followed quickly by something more complex, relief mingled with shame. Change of plans, the lead marshal informed her. Agent Harlow will be accompanying the transport team. Melanie nodded mutely, avoiding direct eye contact as she was guided to the armored transport vehicle. Trent took position not inside with her, but in the lead SUV, his attention focused outward on potential threats rather than inward on personal recriminations. The convoy departed at precisely 8:17 a.m., 2 minutes ahead of the filed schedule, a small but potentially significant deviation from the plan anyone with inside access might anticipate. 3 vehicles moved in tight formation, communications maintained through encrypted channels monitored at both the detention center and airfield. For the first 11 minutes, the transport proceeded according to protocol, following the primary route through downtown San Antonio toward the airfield on the city's northeast side. Traffic was moderate, each intersection temporarily controlled by unmarked units that melded back into the flow after the convoy passed. It was at the transition from urban center to industrial outskirts that Trent's instincts flared. A delivery truck ahead slowed unexpectedly, brake lights flashing as it drifted slightly toward the center line. Pattern brake, Trent alerted the convoy. Lead vehicle slowing, possible obstruction. The team leader acknowledged, adjusting speed slightly while maintaining formation. Standard protocol allowed for minor route adjustments without abandoning the primary path. What happened next unfolded with the precision of careful planning meeting experienced execution. As the convoy approached the slowing truck, a municipal maintenance vehicle entered from a side street, emergency lights flashing as if responding to an urgent repair. Possible converging threat, Trent warned, recognizing the textbook setup for an ambush. Before the convoy could adjust course, the maintenance vehicle swerved sharply, blocking the rightmost lane and forcing the transport into closer proximity with the delivery truck. Defensive positions, ordered the team leader. Prepare for. The detonation cut off communication, the delivery truck erupting not with the catastrophic force of a bomb designed to destroy, but with precisely calibrated impact intended to disable and distract. Smoke filled the street as the lead SUV's driver fought to maintain control, tires screeching against pavement. Training took over as Trent exited the vehicle, weapon drawn, positioning himself between the disabled transport and the smoke-obscured threat. Through the haze, he detected movement, tactical approaches from multiple angles, the ambush team using the smoke for cover. Federal agents. Trent announced, authority cutting through chaos. Stand down immediately. The response came in the form of concentrated fire, rounds impacting the transport's reinforced body. Not random suppression, but calculated targeting of hinges, locks, and structural vulnerabilities. Trent returned fire, forcing one attacker back while communicating positions to the security team regrouping around the vehicles. Through his earpiece came confirmation that backup was inbound. But the tactical assessment was clear. The ambush team would breach the transport before reinforcements arrived. Then, cutting through smoke and gunfire, came a voice Trent recognized instantly. Stand down, Trent. Preston Cahill called, his position obscured but his voice unmistakable. This isn't about you. We only want Melanie. Federal agent under fire. Trent responded, both to Preston and through his comm to headquarters. Multiple hostiles, attempting to breach prisoner transport. She sold you out, Trent. Preston continued, his voice moving as he repositioned. She was willing to let Leo die? Why are you still protecting her? The psychological warfare was precisely calibrated to target Trent's emotional vulnerabilities, reminding him of Melanie's betrayal at the moment he risked his life to protect her. This isn't about Melanie, Trent replied, advancing through smoke toward Preston's voice. This is about the job, about justice. Preston's laugh carried clearly. Always the true believer. That's why Diego found you so fascinating, the incorruptible Agent Harlow, sacrificing everything for the badge. Through a momentary clearing in the smoke, Trent caught glimpse of movement to his left. Preston, flanked by 2 men in tactical gear, attempting to circle behind the transport. You're surrounded, outgunned, and cut off from backup, Preston called. Give us Melanie, and everyone walks away. Diego's lawyers need certain assurances she won't be providing. Not happening, Trent responded, adjusting his position to block their approach to the transport. Then I'm truly sorry about what comes next, Preston replied, genuine regret coloring his voice. The shift in tactics came with brutal efficiency. Flashbang grenades deployed simultaneously from multiple angles, temporarily overwhelming Trent's senses despite his experienced anticipation of the tactic. Through disorientation, he maintained positional awareness, tracking movement by sound and peripheral vision as the assault team converged on the transport. What Preston couldn't have anticipated was the secondary protocol Trent had implemented that morning. Melanie wasn't in the transport vehicle at all, but in the third SUV, disguised as a marshal with a completely different build and appearance. As the assault team breached the empty transport, confusion rippled through their coordinated attack. Trent used the momentary advantage to advance on Preston's position, identifying his former colleague through the dissipating smoke. It's over, Preston, Trent announced, weapon train center mass. The transport's empty. Melanie's already at the airfield. Preston's expression shifted from confusion to reluctant admiration. Contingency planning worthy of a deep cover operative, he acknowledged. But this doesn't end here, Trent. Diego's organization is bigger than you know. Maybe, Trent conceded. But it ends today for you. Drop your weapon. For a moment, it seemed Preston might comply, his tactical assessment recognizing the deteriorating situation as sirens announced approaching reinforcements. Then his expression hardened with resolve. Tell Leo I'm sorry, he said, suddenly raising his weapon not toward Trent, but toward the third SUV where Melanie was actually hidden. Trent fired first, years of training and the absolute certainty of Preston's lethal intent guiding his response. The round struck, centering Preston's chest and sending him backward onto the pavement. In the aftermath, as tactical teams secured the scene and medical personnel confirmed Preston's death, Trent approached the third SUV where Melanie waited, shaken but unharmed. You knew, she said quietly as he opened the door. You knew he'd come for me. Preston helped design our transport protocols, Trent confirmed. He knew exactly where vulnerabilities would be. Melanie studied his face, searching for something beyond professional assessment. Why did you come yourself? After everything. You could have let someone else handle it. Trent considered the question carefully, aware that his answer reflected not just his professional ethics, but the personal journey of the past 3 years. Because it needed to end right, he finally replied. For Leo's sake. For mine. Maybe even for yours. Do you think it has? She asked, vulnerability momentarily visible beneath the protective layers she'd built. Trent thought of Leo waiting at the DEA facility, of the long road ahead rebuilding their lives after 3 years of necessary deception, of the complex healing that would define their future. The operation's over, he said definitively. What comes next is about accountability, not vengeance. As the backup transport arrived to complete Melanie's journey to the airfield, Trent stepped back, physically and emotionally creating distance between himself and the woman who had once been the center of his cover identity, if not his heart. His phone vibrated with a message from Weber. Situation contained. All hostiles accounted for. Leo asking about you. With the simple clarity that had guided him through 3 years of deep cover and the chaotic aftermath of its collapse, Trent made his decision. The operational debrief could wait. The paperwork would still be there tomorrow. His son needed him now, not Agent Harlow with his tactical assessments and professional detachment, but simply Dad, present and genuine after years of necessary pretense. As Melanie was transferred to the secure vehicle that would complete her journey toward legal redemption, Trent turned away, holstering his weapon and shedding the operational mindset that had defined him for so long. Where are you going? Asked the tactical team leader. We need your statement for the report. To see my son. Trent replied, the simple truth more powerful than any cover identity he'd ever created. Everything else can wait. 6 months later, on a crisp December morning, Trent sat beside Leo in a federal courtroom as Diego Solano received multiple life sentences without possibility of parole. Melanie, testifying as part of her plea agreement, received 8 years with the possibility of supervised release after 5, a substantial reduction from the decades she'd initially faced. Outside the courthouse, Leo squeezed his father's hand as reporters shouted questions about the case that had exposed corruption within both the DEA and San Antonio's business community. Are they going to follow us forever? Leo asked, eyeing the media scrum surrounding their vehicle. Not forever, Trent assured him. Just until the next big story comes along. As they drove away, Leo stared thoughtfully out the window before asking, "Was it worth it, Dad?" The 3 years pretending. Trent considered the question with the honesty he now maintained in all communications with his son. Professionally, yes. We stopped an organization that was poisoning communities across the country. But personally, that's more complicated, Trent admitted. I lost things I can't get back. Time with you that I can't recover. But you saved a lot of people, Leo pointed out. And you caught the bad guys. We caught some bad guys, Trent corrected gently. There are always more. Is that why you're going back to work next month? To catch more bad guys. Trent smiled at his son's perceptiveness. His new position with the DEA's Internal Affairs Division had been offered as recognition of his role in exposing Preston's corruption, a role that would allow regular hours and stability for Leo's sake. Partly, he acknowledged, but mostly because it's who I am. Not just the undercover agent or the pretend veteran, but someone who believes in doing what's right, even when it's hard. Leo nodded with the simple wisdom that had sustained them both through the upheaval of the past year. Like you always tell me, we're responsible for our choices. Exactly, Trent agreed, ruffling his son's hair affectionately. And I choose this life. With you, no more pretending. As they headed home, not to the house tainted by memories of betrayal, but to the new beginning they'd created together, Trent reflected on the strange alchemy that had transformed a necessary deception into its opposite, a commitment to absolute truth between father and son that would define whatever came next. Not undercover, but finally, authentically, themselves. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.